Okay.
This is the A. I'm Reg Clay.
And Norman G.
This is the A, where we talk about life in the theater and the theater of life.
Yay!
We have a fantastic guest. We have Aureen Almario. She is the artistic director of Bindlestiff Studios, and we've been talking about Bindlestiff pretty much
Almost every week. Yeah.
I know if you're a fan of the A, you know we bombard you with talks about Bindlestiff. And so this is the artistic director, Aureen. Aureen, how are you?
Hi, everybody. I'm doing fine. I finally made it.
Yeah. We've been asking you for a while, but you've been busy, good busy, and also you just celebrated your birthday. So happy birthday, post birthday to you. But yeah, I was telling. This is a surprise to you, Norman, but I have a sort of minuet of links of clips of people who have been on the show who have talked about what Bindlestiff means to them.
Oh, coolness.
Yeah, so after we do our current event stuff, before we get into the origin story, I'll play the clips, and I'm going to see if Aureen can recognize the names, the people.
That'll be fun.
That will be fun. As I begin every podcast, Norman, how was your week?
Lordy. If you've been following Facebook this morning, you know what I've been doing. I've spent the last 2 hours, I got hacked.
Mm-hmm.
And
now, Aureen, you can join in anytime, Aureen.
Okay.
This porn thing went out through Messenger to all these people.
Oh, that's right. You've been the Maddie May thing, the Jeannie Baroga new play.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, pornography.
Oh, you've been hacked.
No, I didn't do anything.
Got it.
No, I've been spending my week. My week has mostly been about Maddie May, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that. I mean, that's when we finish today, we'll be doing a rehearsal for reading that's coming up on the 22nd of this new play by Jeannie Baroga. So that's been most of my week. But today, I woke up to this. My wife woke up and was like, "What was this you sent me?" And I looked, and I was like, "I didn't send you that." And sure enough, it just went through my messenger. So I went through to every individual who it got sent to and said, "I am so sorry."
Oh, poor
I was able to track the source of it and block them, report them, try to just clean up all of it. I went through security and I changed my password and I reviewed all the posts that have happened in the last few days and I cut down. There was some link, I don't even know what city.
Yeah.
Somebody else supposedly posting or logged in on my account. So,
I think it's the new normal. I mean, every time I see a strange post by somebody asking me to click on something, I'm usually like, this is probably, right. And I usually write back saying, hey, did you really send this to me? What's my first name? What's my favorite food or something like that? So I think it's just the new normal. It is what it is.
What I'll do is I'll go ahead and look it up, not click on it. I'll look it up and see. And, mostly Snopes will have a thing saying, oh, watch out for this.
Yeah.
Well, like,
Aureen, Aureen, I'm sure you've been hacked or have you had computer issues lately?
Luckily, I haven't, but I did see somebody try to do something like that, like a clickbait on Bindlestiff's social media. And then another arts organization that we know they do more like events and things like that, not so much theater, but they got hacked and they were being harassed.
Oh goodness.
Yeah. So they sent out a warning to everybody to change all their passwords and do two authorization.
Oh yeah, the two authorization, like they'll either send you a text message or they'll email you. Yeah.
Oh.
Two-party authentication. I think that's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's probably not a bad thing.
Yeah, it is what it is. So I know we have we really can't go above, beyond an hour and a half. So there are some current events that I thought were interesting. Of course, the COVID numbers are up and the deaths are up in certain states. What's interesting is what are states going to do about schools? Right. I know, Aureen, you don't have any kids, but Andrea has kids, and you're an auntie. But I wonder what parents are going to do. The decision to be made: do you send your kids to school? You guys have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I actually am a teacher, my regular job, and I've taught preschool for 20 years, and my mom owned a preschool. So, I mean, I just remember when I was teaching in preschool, I was sick all the time, and so children would just they're like, sharing germs, and then as a teacher, you're sharing their germs, and parents would constantly have no other option but to bring kids to school even though they're sick.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so I know these are like desperate times for parents, but it's just the likelihood that it's going to spread in a school setting is very, very high.
Yeah.
Right.
Norman, here's a question for you. Dexter, I mean, he's about to go to college. I mean, have you guys been getting any notices from the university as to
Oh
what's
yeah.
going to happen?
No, that he's already signed up for some classes. I think there's still another that just happened this last week. Signed up for some classes, and it looks like he may have one or two classes on campus, and
Mm,
then the rest of it'll be remote.
yeah. And I think college is fine. I mean, I worry about, have you lost any income, Aureen? I mean, I know, COVID-19 probably hit the latter half of the school year, but have you been out of, have you lost any income from your day job?
Um, I think somewhat. Like what happened was what I do now. I because my mom's preschool closed, but I actually am one of those people that do a lot of teaching gigs. I teach everywhere. I teach like the youngest is kindergarten. I also teach at San Francisco State University, and then I do community workshops for as old as like seniors.
Oh,
And
wow.
so all of those programs with especially like vulnerable people and youth and younger kids, all of those had to stop. And the seniors early on, pretty much. And so the funding for those, because they were like arts grants, had to
Hmm.
shift. We had to do other things in order to meet
Yeah.
our our um, our deliverables.
Are you doing a lot of Zoom teaching, Aureen?
Yeah, my college class I had to transition to Zoom and I had to
Mhm.
learn how to use it. It was like the first time I've ever used it.
Yeah.
Luckily, I had a teacher's assistant and she helped out a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Another thing that hit in the news, we think that the Jeffrey Epstein thing was over when he died, but they recently caught, I think her name is Ghislaine Maxwell.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hey, you working on the names there, Reg? That
we're
was
trying
good.
to. I'm going to get a notice saying, no, that's not how you pronounce it. But in any case,
That sounded pretty good to me.
yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell, you know, this is probably prejudicial to me, but I think I mean, if I could count, if I had a nickel for every man who committed a crime because they couldn't control their libido, I'd be richer than Jeff Bezos. I mean, and I work in the DA's office, so they are full of cases dealing with that. But a woman who participates and who brings in these women, these girls,
Right.
um, that's a level of, I don't know, cruelty, evil that I just can't even fathom. So that was one thing that sort of fascinated me.
Well, the weird thing about, or to me, the weirdest thing about it was more than reporting that there were all these things about make sure she doesn't commit suicide in jail.
Oh yeah, and they're watching her right now.
Yeah, no,
That's
it's weird.
yeah. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, Aureen. I can move on to something else.
Yeah, I think that I mean even with Weinstein, like
Yeah,
there's people that are complicit and are enabling the crime to happen over and over again. And I think for the Epstein, the woman that was involved, I forgot her name, but there's this whole thing where women actually are the groomers, like they groom
yeah,
the
that's right.
potential victims and they scout them, and there's so many other
Right.
instances where that has been the case.
Yeah, it's really icky. And I was reading a little bit about it. Apparently, she's the daughter of Robert Maxwell, who is a sort of a British media mogul. He's sort of the competitor of Roger Ailes, and he died
Oh,
mysteriously in 1991. And to make a long story short, it sounds like Ghislaine has sort of a daddy fixation. It's almost like Jeffrey Epstein was the pseudo father for her, which means, not only was she indoctrinating young girls to come into Jeffrey Epstein, but she may have been indoctrinated herself. I'm not making any excuses, but
right.
sort of the psychology behind her. But you know, um, I'm glad that they caught her, and she should, serve because
Excuse me.
bless you. A lot of these girls would never, ever, ever have been in contact with Jeffrey Epstein or have been cajoled into doing a lot of the stuff if it weren't a woman saying, "Oh, it's going to be okay."
Yeah.
It's really, really horrible.
Yeah, it happened.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And the very last thing. So I spent the 4th of July watching Hamilton. Uh, I'm sure a lot of other folks did as well.
Right.
And apparently there's a controversy about Hamilton. I guess the cancel culture has affected that. And that sort of delves into theater. Have you heard about this, Norman?
No, I'm not sure.
So there are people who are like, why are we celebrating Hamilton? And why are we watching this thing, which was created by Lin-Manuel Miranda? It's really a brilliant, I had never seen Hamilton before. And, they do an amazing job telling this incredible story in their own way, a multicultural story about the founding fathers. Of course, there's some controversy about, well, Hamilton was a slave owner. Jefferson was a slave owner. Washington was a slave owner. Why won't Hamilton talk about that? And is there some whitewashing going on?
Yeah. But it's just bizarre to me when you talk about a piece of fiction. It's historical fiction, but it's fiction, and then they want to sort of nitpick at it. I'm like, 1776. Are we gonna go back and tear that one apart? It's,
Yeah, I
it's
think
ridiculous.
I think it's a little ridiculous as well, and it's very clear that it's not meant to be, what do they call it, literal. Um, I remember when I was just coming out of college and JFK, the movie by Oliver Stone, had come out, and I was working at Forbes magazine. It was one of the first jobs that I had coming out of school. And I remember some of the very ultra conservative guys who were the executives at Forbes were like, "Oh my God, this is so horrible what Oliver Stone is doing. Now these kids are going to get their history from this film writer." And it's art. I mean, this is just art. This is just an interpretation
Right.
of art. Aureen, what do you have thoughts about Hamilton? Have you seen Hamilton before?
Yeah. So I have a story about Hamilton. I'm
Oh.
actually, so it came out in 2015, right?
Yes.
Hmm.
And then I just happened to, around that time, go to New York, or I was in Connecticut with my boyfriend's family, and we went to New York to try to get tickets. By then, it wasn't hitting like the high ticket, amount yet. It was just like
Hmm.
starting to peak, and so we could definitely like not afford to go. But they had a lottery, like not a lottery, but like a cancellation line, like in case somebody canceled,
Oh, right. Yeah.
you can get in the line and try to get their seats. And so we stood in the cancellation line, I feel like for about 2 hours for a matinee. And just our luck, we like got tickets for really cheap, like $100. And we're like, oh yay, we're coming, we're getting in there. And prior to watching, prior to going, I kind of read about it. I saw some of the clips, and I was already kind of skeptical. I was kind of weirded out by the colonial outfits and the rapping at the same time. It seemed a little off.
Right.
But I listened to the soundtrack, and I loved the music. And then I had a friend that really, told me that I should really try to go. And so when we were going into the theater, we're thinking we're gonna go all the way up to the nosebleed section. They're like, no, you're here, you're in this way. And then turns out we're gonna sit in the orchestra.
Wow.
Yeah, there were like eight, like the eighth row. And I just remember sitting down, and I was surrounded by old white people, just
Mm.
like me and my boyfriend, and then all these old white people around me. And I just felt like a very a cultural like connection that I had to the song and the music and the people, the bodies that were performing, that
Hmm.
it was so visceral. Like I felt so proud to be sitting there and then looking around me, and they had no idea what the references were or the musical references. And
Right.
they were, some of them were like sleeping, like that they didn't get it. And there was something
Wow.
that I got, like, because I grew up with this music. And so I just remember like wanting to dance and wanting to get up, but like they were just sitting there. You know, they didn't understand the value of. I felt like I had cultural capital
Right.
and a knowledge that they didn't. And I don't know. That was something that like I feel like no one can really take away from me from that experience, even though I understand the criticism now, 5 years
Sure.
from now, and like understanding the concerns around it.
Yeah, I
Go
felt
ahead.
I'm sorry, Norman, go ahead.
No, you go.
I felt the exact same way, Aureen, and it's interesting and it's really ironic because when we think about theater, it's almost like there are two types of theater. It's almost like a class divide in theater where the upper class theater, where you go to the Kennedy Center or the Orpheum or Broadway, there's this high class theater, which let's say minorities have no connection to whatsoever. And then you have, let's say the sort of community theater or the theater within the community, which is just as valuable and has a strong connection to a lot of us, a lot of the stuff that Bindlestiff is doing along with the other theater groups. And it's very rare to have that connection to that sort of high stakes theater. I mean, I think it's a gift that Lin-Manuel Miranda has brought to the theater community, not only with Hamilton, but within the Heights. And I think about Rent, there's definitely a seismic shift in the musical community. We saw it with Stephen Sondheim in the 60s and Andrew Lloyd Webber in the 70s, where there's music which is coming closer to, this is the new generation
Right.
music. When I listen to Hamilton, the 10 Dual Commandments, I immediately knew that was a reference to the 10 Crack Commandments by the Notorious B.I.G. And I was like, wow, does anyone else get that reference? And I was like, wow, that is just awesome. Go ahead. What were you saying, Norman?
Oh no, just Aureen's story made me think about that the famous clip of Vice President Pence
Pence, that's
or
right.
Vice President-elect Pence going to see it and being offended and people being offended, and that just puts that audience more in context for me. It's like, oh, it's not just him; it's a whole lot of people like him who went to see the hot show and were sitting there scratching their heads. What is this?
Yeah, yeah. Welcome to the new generation. This generation, the millennials, and I think Aureen, I think you are a millennial. This is, the millennials have a voice, and Lin-Manuel Miranda, this is the voice of the new generation, and the older generation can either embrace it or get pushed out of the way.
Yeah.
I don't see an issue with the cultural or the cancel culture. I mean, we all know that all of the founding fathers had slaves, and even Lincoln himself, didn't really think that the black man was, or the black community was equal to the white community. But he did what he did, and we still have the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and this wonderful democracy that we have here in America. It's not perfect, but we have a say-so in it, so that's the gift that they give to us. So any case.
Yeah, what's that phrase? There's a phrase to create or something a more perfect union.
Yeah.
I love, and I saw that quoted this week, and I was like, yes, that's what we're aiming at, which means we can make it better, more perfect.
Exactly. It's a work in progress.
For it the way it is, we can improve it.
Yeah, it's always a work in progress. Before I get into an origin story, Ari, and this is something that I ask everyone, how optimistic are you about 2020 and the election? Do you think, do you have any?
4 more years.
Do you have a hot take on Trump and how you've survived and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I just saw a article yesterday about there's this one I guess one type of prediction for the election, and it was 91% that Trump could win, and that I'm just like scared that if he would win, I think it'll be devastating, to say the least. But
Right, we will
I'll
really
work.
be out in the street.
Yeah, I'll do my best to make sure I, get everybody that I know to vote, and my students.
Yeah. I've seen the opposite. I've seen a lot of predicting polls saying that Biden will win. But, they said that Hillary will win in 2016.
Right.
Were you shocked, Aureen, when when Trump won in 2016?
I think I cried. I think I was so flabbergasted. At that time, I couldn't vote, so I didn't have um, that right yet. But this year I can. And I plan on
Okay.
exercising my right. Um, yeah, but I was extremely, extremely devastated at that time
Yeah, yeah.
and shocked because I just felt like everybody, I was in that Facebook. Everybody around me seemed like they were in support, and then the
Right.
results were the opposite.
Yeah, yeah, but I definitely have hope, and every news. I mean, I'm reading articles that Trump is just flipping out over every little thing, whether it be the Supreme Court ruling that says that he doesn't have to give up his tax record information
Right.
this year, but it's sort of kicking it down the curb. The courts have said, hey, we do have a right to see his tax records. There's that,
Right.
and there's also his niece who wrote a very scathing
Right.
book telling all the details of what's happening with Donald Trump and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm more optimistic, but we'll see what happens.
Right.
And with that, let's talk about Aureen Almario, the artistic director for Bindlestiff, and let's talk about Bindlestiff. So these are some clips, and I want you, Aureen, to see if you can recognize some of these individuals
Okay.
who have talked about Bindlestiff. You don't have to close your eyes.
Yeah, I can't see them.
You go back on stage and then you get to be dramatic. And so I felt like Stories High is definitely the epitome of what it means to be, culturally Filipino and Filipino American. And the space itself is just, I think it's the only theater space in America that's dedicated to Filipino American art.
That's correct. Yep. Okay, can you recognize her?
I don't know her last name. Is it Karina?
Nope.
No.
It's
I can-
killing me. Is it Tony Lynn?
No.
No. Okay.
I know that one.
It is Mallory Samara.
Oh.
And we had her along with her mother, Erlina.
Oh yes. Okay. Yes. Yes.
They were talking about the
I know
history.
them.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another one.
When I was introduced to Bindlestiff, I was attending SF State, and I had joined PACE, which is like the Filipino American Community Endeavor. I think that was the name of the group.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those people were a part of Bindlestiff too. So I would just go to shows, and the comedy thing seemed really fun because there's oh man, what was his name? Kevin Tamiya, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was teaching some free comedy workshops, and I'm like, oh, sure, give it a whirl. And he just made it so approachable and fun. Like, I felt like at the time it was a great form of therapy. Like, now my therapy is like karaoke when I'm feeling stressed and stuff like that.
Okay. So does that sound familiar?
Oh man. I
I'm not putting you on
hard.
the spot.
This is harder than I thought. Oh man.
She's more of a makeup artist than an actual actress.
Oh, okay. Yes. Thank you. Alexis.
No.
Ah.
Oh.
Terry Alabata.
Oh, Terry.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Who recently came back from, I believe, New Zealand, and she's back, and
Wow.
so there you go. Okay, here's another one.
Melvin Crystal, all these guys that have now come down the line, and even Nicole out in Mashali out in New York now.
Just for reference, we're talking about all of the individuals who have come, who started in Bindlestiff and now doing bigger and greater and better things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
All this stuff.
Canavasco, who's in LA.
It's all of this. All these guys that come out. Me and Alan had the vision, because Alan was an artistic director at the time. Our vision for Bindlestiff Studio was to learn.
Yeah, Norman knows.
Was to learn.
I don't remember his name. I remember
as
the
much as
interview.
we can from the rest of the theater community, and then bring it back to Bindlestiff Studio. I mean, here I was a Filipino, not really knowing what Bindlestiff Studio was.
Right.
But once I knew it, I said, "This is the way to make us stronger."
Right.
Okay, what do you think, Aureen?
Oh, tip of my tongue. Would this be Rene Acosta?
No. He is, I don't know how because I think he left pretty early, but this is Percy Asabal.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, I do know
He
Percy.
does this to me too, and I'm like, I don't know half these people.
Let's try a couple more.
When I first started with Bindlestiff, I was actually up in the tech booth. You know, it was a new group of folks. They were very eccentric, you know, to say the least. But you know, I've never seen a bunch of Filipinos really doing, you know, art that, you know, that I have never seen before, you know. And so it was refreshing to see stories and see stories about folks that look like me.
Right.
You know.
What do you think?
Melvin.
Melvin, yes, you knew that immediately.
Yay!
Also
Melvin
from
Badiola. Yeah.
It gave me a community and has since always done it. Like
This is great.
Bindlestiff.
That's
the
exactly right.
The community that I was able to build through that. Whereas, yeah, I've got a lot of friends from Bindlestiff, and for me, it gave me this community of people that I could count on being there.
British.
Hmm.
You recognize him? He's obviously not Filipino, but he is a British individual who
Of
talked
course.
very much about how he found a community that he could not find in England, a theater community.
Is it Ben?
Ben Couch.
Yeah.
When I came back in the fall of '96, I was it was literally and figuratively, it felt very cold in the United States. You know, it was the weather was colder, obviously, but just the I was missing that kind of camaraderie, that group culture in the Philippines, right? And and I found this perfect mix of all that at Bindlestiff Studio.
That's right, Bindlestiff Studio.
What about that? Norman, you should know him.
Mike Dorado.
Hey, there you go.
Who was it?
Michael Dorado.
Dorado, yes.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to play one last one. Here we go.
Arnett, how did you get involved in Bindlestiff?
Bindlestiff has been a company I've known about since I was a kid, because they've been around for so long. And, you know, it was something my brother, when he realized I was getting into theater, was like, well, when you come back to the Bay, get involved with these folks, you know. So, so I got involved because I had friends that were like Conrad Panganiban, who was involved at the time when I moved back to the Bay. So through him, I got re-involved. You know, I got involved with Bindlestiff, and then from there, just you become.
Yeah. So what do you think? Crystal, exactly.
Yeah.
So there you go. There are a bunch of folks. I think I had 10 clips. I didn't play all of them, but so many individuals, writers, directors, young actors who are trying to fill up their resume. Everyone has talked about how wonderful Bindlestiff has been for them. How did you, this will be a good sort of origin, we'll get into an origin story, but how did you get involved with Bindlestiff?
I was an audience member at first. Like, I would watch their show. I heard about, I grew up in the East Bay in Hayward, and I was kind of like searching for something too, and somehow online I found one of the artists. He was actually a spoken word artist, but my first show ever at Bindlestiff in 2003 was actually a poetry show, because they do, you know, other forms performance, and so it was a poetry show. My friend was in it, and then I just started watching a lot of their productions, and I really felt seen for the first time in terms of like entertainment or performances. It was very powerful being able to be an audience member at that time, because it was the original space, and I just felt like I was in the middle of something really great, and I wanted to be part of it. So it wasn't until 2004, actually the first Bindlestiff was demolished, the space, and then 2004, when we had a temporary space in the alley in Natoma, that's where I got involved. I did Stories High, and after that I got asked by my ultimate like mentor, and you know, someone that I admired, Lorna Velasco, to play in to act in this trilogy play, and by all works by Bienvenido Santos. He's a Filipino American writer, and they adapted it into stage, and so that was sort of the first step into getting more roles, and I kept getting asked to participate and be part of collectives and troops and start collectives as well. And so from that point on, I just didn't stop doing things at Bindlestiff. I actually don't have any formal theater training. I never took a class
Oh,
as of state.
Yeah, that's really surprising. I mean, because I'd like to learn more about just your family because, you know, as you were growing up, I mean, your mother is still involved in theater, right? Isn't she an actress?
Yeah, right now she's doing a lot more film. Like our last project together was a film project, and yeah.
Yeah. So what was it like growing up in a theater or arts family? I mean, so I know about Andrea, but do you have any other siblings?
are you from the Bay Area?
Yeah, but immigrant, like I immigrated here when I was 10
Okay.
from the Philippines, but we settled in Hayward, California.
Ah.
And then there's 5 of us siblings all together. And it's interesting because my mom did theater in the Philippines when she was a little girl, all the way up to college. And or up to high school, she actually received a full ride scholarship to go to college to do theater. And she declined because her parents wanted her to be a doctor. And so my mom ended up, and the college that she had a full ride scholarship was sort of in the provincial area of the Philippines versus going to like Manila, the big city,
right,
study to be a doctor. So she and her parents wanted her to pursue medicine. And so that's what kind of stopped her from pursuing theater. She had kids and then, you know, immigrated here. So it wasn't until she was, I feel like 50s or 60s that she started doing theater again.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you didn't do any did you do shows when you were a kid, like in preschool or elementary school, that sort of stuff?
No, and I was very shy. I was like horribly shy kid. I'd never even thought of myself as like somebody that would perform. It wasn't, I always thought of myself as like a visual artist. Like I do photography or paint and draw. That was my art expression. And my mom definitely like harnessed that. Like she nurtured that in me. But it wasn't until like I was in college that my mom started taking theater classes in the community college. And then I found Bindlestiff simultaneously. And I just my sister Andrea and my mom are both taking theater classes. And me and Andrea were also taking theater workshops at Bindlestiff. But I wrote a play in Stories High, and we needed a mom character. And my mom was the first person that, you know, I thought of. I'm like, well, it's kind of loosely based on you. So
which Stories High was that?
It was in 2004.
Okay.
And it was my first time being on stage ever in my life. And it was amazing because my sister was in it too, in the show, and also my mom.
Can you talk about what theater in general, or I guess arts in general, means to you? Because you say that you're shy, and you could have easily just gone into another genre, but theater sort of spoke to you. What does theater mean to you?
I think the reason why theater spoke to me so much, I always knew since I was like 2 years old or 3 years old, I knew I wanted to be an artist. I just knew that was something I wanted to do, but it was visual arts, like I said, like I wanted to draw and paint. And the way I learned about art was actually through my mom, who at the time, it was like, we were in the Philippines, and it was the the people power with Marcos. He was, you know, the dictator at the time. It was coincided with like her teaching me about social justice, sort of.
Wow.
You know, not like very, she was teaching me how to draw while also telling me stories about what's going on around me, which was like literally like a revolution, you know?
Well, yeah, for folks who don't know, I mean, I think it was around the late 80s, Ferdinand Marcos had assassinated Ninoy Aquino, and his wife, Corazon Aquino, took over, and that was the people power to sort of take power back from this dictatorial regime.
Right. And I was born around that time. I was born in 81. And so it was like the 80s where that was where it kind of peaked for Marcos's regime and ended in 86 because people revolted. And so my awakening and my idea of art was always connected to how I saw the world and society. And so it was never like separated for me. I always wanted to like reflect the world the way I saw it and like my own commentary through my art. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have art. When I also came to the US, I was undocumented. And so I didn't really have I didn't feel like I could afford art school. And so that's what ended up with me going into childcare and being a preschool teacher because my mom opened a business, and I was able to like work.
Yeah.
And
I wanted to pause. I was doing the math real quick. Are you saying you're 39 or 38 years old?
I just turned 39.
God, you are just.
You're not supposed to ask that.
No, hey, she had volunteered it. I mean, my goodness, you don't look a day over 24. But hey, that is just awesome.
Yeah, you can't see my white hair. That's why.
No. And I think that the arts sort of makes you young. There's something that Norman and I talk about all the time. I think there's just something about the arts that that revives us, that keeps us young. But as far as teaching, I mean, one incredible thing about you, Aureen, is that you have, I mean, from being someone who is shy and who really didn't see themselves in a theater community, you are, especially as a woman, you're at a position where a lot of women will envy. I mean, you are the artistic director of a theater company, and a very vibrant theater company. In its 30th year, I mean, there are a lot of theater companies that are folding, that are having a hard time. There's Off-Broadway West that folded earlier this year. There's the Darkroom Theater that's not around anymore. But Bindlestiff is doing really, really well, and they're in good hands. What was your transition into? How did you ascend to being the artistic director of Bindlestiff?
Yeah, well, at the time, our Lorna Velasco was the artistic director. She had to move to Seattle because her husband's job took him to Seattle, and so she wasn't even a year yet into her position, and she was already about to move, and she was kind of like looking around her like, who's going to be the next artistic director? And then she kind of planted the seed in my brain. I'm like, oh, I can't do that, I don't want to do it. And then but when she left, and then like months would pass and nobody applied for the artistic director position. It's not paid. It's a volunteer position, and like there's really no incentive other than like you get to hold some decision making power. But yeah, months passed and there was still no artistic director, and then I just felt compelled to apply, and I just and then I also had support from people who were saying like, I can help you. Like Alan Kismorio was also the former artistic director. He was like, I can, there's ways to do it even if you have a full-time job. And so and then I have so much love for Bindlestiff, like everything. I didn't get to explain earlier, but like when I was undocumented, it was like performing was a way for me to feel like a human, like because I was so limited like institutionally with the things I could do. But if I could perform and I could act this character, that was a way for me to feel sort of like alive in a way that I felt really limited in real life. And that's why I just kept coming back, and that's kind of why I stayed. And because there's people that will move and go, pursue careers outside of Bindlestiff, right? But for me, it was just like, this is my home. I'm gonna just keep doing this.
Yeah, no, and people respect you. I mean, when I've worked with, I've done 2 Stories High at Bindlestiff, and people look up to you. And as a matter of fact, I think you directed what was it? It was the piece by oh shucks, Deanne, yeah. And you're very good with people. You're very attentive to people's emotions and needs, and you know how to speak is one thing that I talk about with Norman as far as directing. How do you speak in different languages? How do you speak, because you deal with different actors who come from different environments, and you have to learn how to listen and to understand where those people are coming from. And it takes a skill to do that. It takes a skill to listen. And I think you have that skill. It's sort of an innate skill. I don't even think it can be taught. And you definitely have that. What difficulties have you had with being the artistic director? I'm sure it's not all fun.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I realized was that once you become the artistic director, you you kind of change the dynamic a little bit with the people you interact with. Whereas when you're an actor, like you're hanging out with the actors, you just kind of play around. But once you're like in that director position, people kind of look at you as an authority figure. And that was one thing I had to adjust to, because I was just like, no, I'm still gonna play around, but I can still party, but it was just that kind of shifted for me, because I was also used to being an actor. I was used to be part of ensembles and things like that. And so I work hard to like try not to be too much as like a authority,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's one of the funniest things about directing. You get this idea that you're kind of in charge, you control. There are those directors who are sort of like the puppet masters, but in a real collaborative process, you're sort of going with the flow. That's really your job, is sort of go, okay, we're going this way now. That wasn't what I expected, but I can make this work.
Yeah. Here's a question for you, Aureen. As a woman, I mean, because as an artistic director, I'm sure, do you have the authority to, because I'm sure there are other theater companies who are like, hey, we want to rent out Bindlestiff and we want to do this play, or we want Bindlestiff to sponsor, or I'm a playwright, here's a play. Are you the one to have the authority to say, yes, we're going to do this, or yes, this is our schedule, or this is our season? Do you make those decisions?
It's actually me and the managing director, because he manages he typically tends to manage the ones that are like just 1-day events, or they just need a rental for whatever reason. But for month-long like rentals, that's usually something that we both decide on together. But for the Bindlestiff in-house production, like the Stories Highs and things like that, I usually really, like, the ones that I have control over is really just Stories High and the main stage.
Yeah. Well, like Granny Card Gangsters. You mean that's another thing that you guys do, right?
It is, yeah. So I'm one of the founders of Granny Cart, and we're a sketch comedy group, all women sketch comedy group. And the reason why I founded, it actually just became extremely more. I feel like our collective has gotten more tight and just more clear in our vision within probably the last 3 years. And just taking a stronger point of view and perspective in how we tell like comedy. But we were all part of Bindlestiff. We're all like have done stand-up and have done sketch comedy. And we just kind of looked around, we're like, you know what, there's things that are funny to us that are could only be framed in that way, where it's like a women collective,
Yeah. We had a couple of women who, like Barbara Michelson Harder, who was a co-owner of Off-Broadway West, and also Linda Ayers Frederick, who runs the Phoenix Theater. And when you're a woman sort of in power, and sometimes your authority is respected, sometimes someone may try to take you for granted by saying, oh, well, it's just Aureen, and has it been difficult? Is your authority respected? I guess that's the best way of putting it. I mean, is it difficult being a woman and being looked upon as a boss, or as someone who has the final say so? Have you had to say no?
I've had to say no, but only because of like logistical reasons, but there are also Bindlestiff is complicated because we have like almost like the whole year will already be will already be scheduled before, because there's like certain troops that come back and they want to do the show. So it'll take like, oh, all of February will be Love Edition. Stories High will be, so it's almost already scheduled. And then we'll only have like maybe 4 months that are actually we can either rent out or do a completely different show outside of our I guess our staple shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had to when you took on the mantle, have you had to sort of relearn or sort of learn business skills or a skill that you didn't necessarily have to be a better artistic director?
Yeah, administrative type of stuff, arts administration type of skills, fundraising. So that's something that I had to learn too, just to ask for money and not, and where I'm also learning like, oh, Bindlestiff has a value and we have to know our worth. And so, right. For example, for the 30th anniversary, we were fundraising, and when when my professor, she found out that, or my former professor, she was like, you guys only asked for this much, you could have asked for more for your gala, and I'm like, yeah, you're right.
I think it was $100 a ticket, right?
Was it? I think it was.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it kept rising the longer you waited to buy it.
Good.
And I hear it was sold out.
Yeah, it's sold out. Yeah, it was a very successful event. But the gala, like, 30 years, like, it was huge. There are so many people from all the different history of Bindlestiff.
That's wonderful. I mean, Bindlestiff, you don't have the problems that a lot of other theater companies have. I mean, there are a lot of theater companies who have to undersell tickets just to get an audience in, ask their friends to, buy tickets or whatever. But Bindlestiff doesn't really have that. I mean, you have a built-in audience, a dedicated audience, a community that really believes in you. And so I see Bindlestiff as being very, very strong. I mean, that's what I see from the outside. Mm-hmm. Would you agree? Or
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that doesn't mean that we don't, there's some such shows that haven't sold out, or, we still have to do our part in marketing a show.
Right.
And, but what's interesting is that there's people that have never gone to like a Broadway show or any theater, but they've gone to multiple Bindlestiff shows.
Uh-huh.
And that's their theater.
Right.
And we also do like youth and seniors are free. So we want to make it so we're accessible to the community, the local neighborhood that we're in, that we're free for folks that live in Soma. And so that's amazing, because we have a youth that grow up like, oh yeah, I went to this Bindlestiff show and that.
Yeah, that's cool. Norman, I want to bring you in. What was your first involvement with Bindlestiff?
I think I've only been to Bindlestiff as a audience member. I mean, I remember the old clubhouse and going to see stuff there. I remember before I was even aware of Bindlestiff, there was a TNT, and going and seeing some of their stuff and just being amazed that, there was this community, which everybody just sort of, it's in its own little ghetto basically. But when you go and you see that the work is as dynamic as any, and it references things that maybe the average American isn't aware of, you start going, wow, this is exciting. I mean, like we were talking earlier about, the way historical fiction works, finding that mechanism. It's great. And even with the reading that we're working on, Maddie May, where there's a lot that is, the writer has to kind of create that world, give voice to those characters more beyond what the history is. What I think is great is when you create a story that is so engaging that I walk out going, I got to know more about that. Like, what's his name? Rizal. I want to know more.
That's right. That wonderful piece that starred Jed Presario. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. I walked out going, wait a minute. Who is this? What did he do? And that's exciting because the piece itself was just so engaging. So I was loving watching this piece of theater, but then I walked out wanting more.
Yeah.
I think it's an incredible experience.
Yeah. And also to piggyback on that, Jet Presario, that was his first role ever, and he did such an incredible job.
Right.
It's one of the great things about Bindlestiff. You know, you can be a young artist, you have something inside of you, but you don't have a resume. And of course, other companies are like, well, you know, we'll take a look at you or whatever. All of a sudden, you have a platform where you can show off your
Right.
skills, and you can market yourself to, you know, Crystal Piemonte Jong is Equity now. There's so many, Cat Vasco is now doing comedy in LA. So there are a lot of folks who have propelled themselves from Bindlestiff to do other things. And so it's a wonderful thing that Bindlestiff has, where you can come in as a young artist, unknown, but emerge as someone who now other people can say, wow, I saw something incredible from that individual.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gives you the experience too, just doing theater.
Yeah, exactly. I want to ask you about, we've touched on women's issues with other people who have been on the A. Have you had to deal either as a director or as an actress, I don't know, the casting couch, or let's say some bad experiences? I doubt that would happen in Bindlestiff, but let's say other areas.
I bet Bindlestiff's not free of it.
Yeah, can you elaborate if on the casting couch?
Well, just
people being inappropriate.
People being inappropriate, let's say in the rehearsal area, or a director asking you to do something that is completely inappropriate. Crystal Piemonte Jong shared a story. It did not happen in Bindlestiff. It happened elsewhere, where an actor had kissed her and she wasn't ready, and they hadn't even talked about it. And she was rather appalled. She was like, hey, I wasn't ready for this. And the director sort of like, well, you know, whatever. Have you had to go through anything like that at all?
I think as an actress, yes. I've had to, and mind you, a lot of my experiences with Bindlestiff. So this one in particular was not in Bindlestiff. It was a film project. But I was already cast in something, and then it was the first day of shooting, and then what do you call it? The cinematographer.
Yeah.
Asking me to if I could wear my underwear in the shoot, and I was like not prepared, you know.
Right.
And, yeah, I was just like, okay. But other than that, I don't think I have a lot of experience with auditioning in other theaters, and I have auditioned for other comedy spaces, and that's pretty interesting, because you know what's funny to somebody is always gonna say something about there's a lot of cultural context that comes with that, because I was actually doing a stand-up set with my and a very like talking about my Filipino experience, and they just didn't get it, you know. So but then somebody from the who was there would, you know, hit me up afterwards and just like, oh, I thought you were actually really, really funny. I don't know why they're not casting you, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Well, so as a director, I mean, because when you had directed us for Gotta Love These Immigrants, you had an interesting directing style. You know, you really did believe in relaxation. You believed in some of the things that I learned at NYU, you know, since connecting with the other actors, communion, making sure that there's a bond. Whereas a lot of other directors are like, hey, look, you guys just handle that all by yourselves. I'm just concerned about the blocking and, you know, your lines and all the technical stuff.
Right.
But your style is more holistic. Can you talk a little bit about your style as a director?
Yeah, I think a lot of the things I apply in directing is the things I've learned. So I have to like give credit to like Lorna Velasco for a lot of things I use in my directing, because as an actress learning from her, I just kind of took what worked and I put it into my directing. Especially because you know Gotta Love Them Immigrants had like 7 actors. I like to do ensemble building a lot with those kind of with huge big cast, and even if it's a small cast, but like the chemistry I feel that you build before even going into the script is equally important than blocking and you know, character analysis, because you're working with this group of people and you need to make sure the chemistry is there. And usually the camaraderie is organic in theater, right? But you have to build that up and you have to take the time to like really harness that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. No, here's a question I hadn't asked you. I mean, because you've dealt with directing a small group of folks and a large group of folks. How hard is it to direct a massive amount of folks? And just what Aureen was talking about. Do you worry about just the camaraderie among a large group of people?
I don't. The biggest difference is, you know, you look at this precious story that you want to tell, that you want to share with an audience. If the configuration is such that there are a lot of people, then the story needs that. There's some way that the story is being told with that as a context. So I focus on that more and on the group dynamic. And at that point, what I'm doing is trusting a lot in my casting. I'm trusting that I can just say, well, you've got this scene with this one other actor. I'm just going to throw you guys a couple of notes. And if I can find a way to peel you off and have you actually look at it or deal with it, make the adjustment, I'm always going to try and take care of the group. And then if there's something where I need to put some specific time in on the smaller elements, I'm happy to have that luxury, but that's what it feels like to me. And a lot of it is, for me, I've worked a lot with teaching. So I'm in a class setting. I can't just focus on the 2-character scene or the 4-character scene. I've got a whole group of kids that I need to do something with. So while I'm focusing on this scene, I better be doing it in a way that relates the play to the larger picture, that larger image, so that everybody else stays engaged. And it's great to me because you'll have that, there's that one guy, that one character that needs to come in after this intimate moment, and the energy of everything is going to pick up, right? If it goes back into a group dynamic, usually the energy is picking up from that quiet little moment where 2 people connect. Inevitably, you've got some young actor who is out to lunch because that's not my scene. I'll just wait until my scene. And it's like, no. You need to be like that relay runner. You need to be on your game, pacing what's going on so that as soon as they finish, you start in. You take control. And so I always love having that moment. I know I'm going to put somebody on the spot. I know it before we even have the rehearsal. And when they do it and they pick it up, then I'm going to stop and say, whoa, I just want everybody to notice. That's what I'm looking for. Make that happen. But more often than not, it's the opposite. More often than not, it's okay, so when we get to these quiet little moments, you all can't check out. You have to stay involved. So let's back this up. Are you ready now? You're sure you're ready? And that person at that point is so embarrassed. They are on their game. And then we move forward and everybody gets the message. This is a whole story that's being told. You cannot let it, those little moments, Romeo and Juliet is the example I always use. Those sweet little moments between Romeo and Juliet, without that larger context, just become sappy and dumb. Mm-hmm. But when you create a dynamic, a group, a world, which is what the playwright wants, when you create that dynamic and have that working, now you can afford that little quiet moment with those 2 people.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'll share 2 quick. So I've had, there was one production that I was involved in. It was Othello. And there were a large group of people. There were some millennials, and then you had some older folks who were like my dad's generation. Boomers. And the director really had not paid attention to the dynamic of the actors. And so during the rehearsal, let's say if people were off stage, people sort of huddled up in their own little nicks or their little cliques or their little areas. Sure. And it read on stage. You could read that there was not the bond that you needed to have with the actors. And also another story, when we did Civil War Christmas, working with Dawn Monique Williams, who's now at the Aurora, she would build these little communities within other communities. So it dealt with the Civil War, so it dealt with race relations, and you had white slave owners, and you had President Lincoln or whatever, and then you had Black soldiers. And so she would build these little minuets, like she would have 3 actors do one thing, and then a couple of other actors do another thing, like these little mini communities, which would build an environment. And all of a sudden, the one actor who has a line is now, interacting and reacting to the environment. And it really created something really wonderful. So, that's just my experience. But I'm always fascinated with how directors sort of create that, because I've never directed in my life. So I wouldn't even know how to create that life on stage.
Yeah, and I think when I directed You for Gotta Love Them Immigrants, I was taking a workshop with Marissa Katubig, and she was really, yeah, that was really helpful, that particular workshop. We delved into many aspects of directing that I never really thought about, lighting and all that stuff, because as an actor, I don't really, I just show up.
Right.
I don't think about all the work directors do.
Yeah. Do you want to do more directing, or are you happy with what you're doing?
Yeah, I do. A lot of the times when we do the main stages, I'm the one directing, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for it. That was one thing, but I felt like I wasn't ready for the workload, but I was prepared.
Cool. Here's a question for you, and I know we're running into, we're about to close it up in a quick second, and it's something I ask all directors. How do you deal with, difficult actors who are not on the same page? You want it in a perfect world, the actors take your direction and they do exactly what you want. But there's some actors who are on their own, they're in their own universe. And it's like, wait a minute, I didn't ask you to do that. How do you deal with the actors like that? Have you had to deal with that, Aureen?
I've not difficult personality, but just like maybe they're not getting the direction. So I've had to try multiple times as much as I can within the group setting to get them there. But what I started doing the last production I did was I did one-on-one with that particular actor. It wasn't that they were difficult or personality-wise. It was just that it wasn't clicking what I wanted them to do. And so I had to sit down and just like, let's just break down this character. Maybe we're not on the same page with how I envision the character versus how you're playing it, or maybe there's a disconnect somewhere. So I had to do a one-on-one with this.
Yeah.
And it worked. And eventually,
good. Because
I didn't click until like showtime. It like was really late in the rehearsal, and I was just like, oh, but she got there.
Sometimes you don't know until showtime, and then it's like, oh, I'm sure directors like, oh, I hope the person gets it, and then all of a sudden you see magic. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but
Yeah, one-on-one helps for me sometimes when taking them out of the group setting and then giving them that direction, so that, because it also, for me, when it's an ensemble, when there's a lot of people and they hear the direction you're giving to that one particular actor, then they kind of like think of it and like, well, you didn't do it that way. But if I pulled them out and be like, can you try it this way, and just whisper it to them, and they go back and try it, and they surprise the rest of the group. I like doing that.
Cool. One last question for you. Where do you see yourself in the future? Where do you see yourself, I don't know, 5 or 10 years from now?
Oh man, that is a crazy question. I actually want to, my dream actually would be to eventually direct something in a bigger stage, outside of Bindlestiff. But I also want to tour really bad. I want to take people from Bindlestiff and show the world what we're made of. Because I've toured before, but not under Bindlestiff, and I saw how powerful it was for me as a performer, and I want that same experience for the people in the theater, and just having the resources to be able to do that and showcase the things we do would be a dream.
Awesome.
I think that may be in this COVID era, as we look for some way forward. I think that may be one of the ways forward, is to be able to take a troupe and find an appropriate venue where everybody feels safe and you've got appropriate distancing, but you can come in and show them rather than trying to squeeze people into the traditional theater space.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, people know Bindlestiff the space, and it's been great for the Filipino American community, but it's also beneficial to have people outside of the Philippine community see this wonderful work. One of the interesting things about the George Floyd, protesting that's been going on is that there's been an explosion of Zoom readings of Black theater and Black content. Like, I've done 2 August Wilson pieces and had turned down a third. And you can tell outside of the community, people are like, hey, I want to know about other cultures. And so it can apply the same thing to the Philippine community or the Latino community. So I can see how Bindlestiff can come to, let's say, the Traveling Jewish Theater building, or let's say, Town Hall Theater, or the DMT, the Douglas Morrison Theater, and say, hey, listen, we're bringing Philippine community theater to you. I could see it working. I could see it totally working. Any case, shout outs, birthdays.
Oh.
Birthdays. So I don't normally like to talk about what's already happened. But there was, where is it? But there is a birthday that I would like to make sure I acknowledge, and that's Ronnie Washington. He's a professor at San Francisco State. He was one of my professors when I was in the theater department there, and his birthday was yesterday. He's a fantastic actor. He's a director. He teaches directing. So Ronnie's birthday was yesterday. Jennifer King, who has been a powerful force in North Bay Theater for a long time. And then going on the other end of the spectrum, Diane Lauren Jones, her birthday is coming up this week.
Yay, we had her on, yeah.
We had her on, and she's in King Lear, which I will say more about when we get there.
Is that the female King Lear?
There is. It's Jessica Powell is playing Lear. Diane is playing Cordelia, the youngest sister, Lear's youngest daughter, and she's playing the Fool. Should be a really neat show to see. A woman I worked with many years ago, Annette Noble, and we just reconnected, I think, through Facebook. Singer, actress, and we did Dreamgirls together, and she played that, the signature role in that, which is just, the Jennifer Hudson, Jennifer Holliday role.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, when I'm not going, yeah.
Oh my God, that is an incredibly difficult song. And she did it and just struggled with it. There were nights when it was magic, and there were nights where she came off with her tail between her legs. And I remember watching that experience, and and everybody was very supportive. We really were supportive of her. A year or two later, I was in the same experience. I was having trouble with the role and just struggling, and everybody was so supportive. And I was like, oh, that's what she felt.
Yeah, I had to go through that with Candide.
Yeah,
a high B flat. Go ahead.
Amy Resnick, Bay Area actress who is amazing. One of those people who I remember auditioning with her once and walking out thinking, wow, that woman's into me. And realizing, no, that woman is a really good actress. She made the moment work. She got the job. Arwen Anderson's birthday is coming up. Arwen and I did 43 plays for 43 presidents. And we did it just as Obama was coming in. So we talked about Obama was coming in. We'll see what happens. Arwen Anderson, I said. Vicki Roselle is somebody, people talk about the Bay Area scene being small. I meet people who have been doing theater like Vicki for decades. And our paths have never crossed. But she was immediately like, I know you. You're Norman G. I was like, okay. And she was stage managing some stuff at Stagebridge. So that was how we connected. Her birthday's this week. I'm going to leave you a couple. Jaxie Boyd, interesting conversation recently about diversity and casting and how people have trouble thinking. And somebody literally quoted that there were only 3 actresses that they could think of in the Bay Area. One of them they mentioned was Jaxie Boyd. Her birthday's coming up this week. Jaxie has been in LA for, I think, a decade or more. And I'm like, how dare you, as a casting person in the Bay Area, say, you don't even know any black actresses, and 2, one of them that you named, one of the 3 that you name, doesn't even live here. Doesn't live
Bay. Yeah.
Joanna Martin is a Bay Area director. Alicia Ehrlich is a Bay Area actress. Michael J. Wong is an actor, and for a while he was doing comedy. I'm not sure what he's doing these days. Mario Gonzalez is somebody that I worked with a lot in Each One Reach One. So we used to hang out together, and we'd be at a bar or something, and somebody would say, well, how did you guys meet? Because he's a little bit younger than me. And we'd look at each other and go, Juvie, right? We met in Juvie, which was literally true. But we used to do theater there, bringing playwriting to the young men mostly. Steve Savage, Bay Area photographer who has focused on theater for decades. And now, if you look him up on Facebook, you will see he posts these beautiful photos of just nature in his neighborhood over in Nahate. And the last one I have is Natasha Young. Natasha was a Bay Area actress, is down in New York, and she actually has I should find the link for it. She has a thing where she does her own little shout out for the work that African Americans performers are doing. Those are my birthdays for the week.
Cool. And I'll be real quick. Shannon Malden, we had her on. Her birthday was on Tuesday, the 11th. She and I shared the stage at the Town Hall Theater doing Civil War Christmas. She was my Rose, and I got to sing a love song to her. Michael Dorado, we just talked about him. His birthday was July the 8th, 3 days ago. An incredible actor, and he will be in Ang Espia, which is a Zoom reading that we'll be doing, sponsored by Bindlestiff Studios, a play written by me. And it's great to have Mike, and Mike's daughter will be in the show as well. So that'll be cool. So happy birthday to Mike.
Is that the show you're doing? Is that the one you're doing on the 25th?
Yes. So at 5, let me see.
I know.
I
was like, wow, you got a busy day.
I know, I do. I'm a very busy day. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But yes, so Michael Dorado, and his birthday was 3 days ago. Happy birthday, Michael. Diane Lauren Jones, her birthday will be Monday. Also, Deborah Cortez.
That was one I left you.
Exactly. Her birthday will be on Tuesday. A great Latina actress, and she graced the stage. It was Generation Theater. It was a Shakespeare play. Maybe it was Midsummer Night's Dream. Yeah, but in any case, you see, so she's doing excellent work, and she's been around. So she's getting around, and she's an excellent actress. Also, Anna Yoham, she and I shared the stage. It was Candide, and her birthday will be Tuesday. Kimberly Ridgway. We can't
that was
say
the
enough.
other one I left you.
Yeah, I know. Kimberly Ridgway. We can't say enough about her. Incredible actress, writer, director, and her birthday will be on Wednesday. Also on Wednesday, Dan Wilson. And Dan Wilson, he and I were at Civil War Christmas. He was John Wilkes Booth, and I think he runs a theater company as well in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. So in any case, happy birthday to him. I think I may have one more. Marissa Wanless. I don't know if you left that for me. Her birthday will be Saturday. You had brought her on the Yay. I'm trying to remember. Was she I think she was involved in the Musical Cafe. She was a
I don't know. She had
the musical. She was from Nashville, Tennessee, I think.
Oh, that's Amber Rubarth.
Oh, okay. I'm getting Marissa, but you brought in Marissa.
Was the artistic director for
Cutting Ball?
Utopia Theater.
Utopia.
And now she and her husband and their new baby are in Vermont, I want to say, Connecticut, New Hampshire, somewhere up there, somewhere in New England. And they got a big spread. And they say they're going to take their barn and renovate it and turn it into a performance space so that they can do spring and summer stuff. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Cool. All righty. So there are a couple of shows going on. You want me to go first?
Go for it.
Well, of course, you and we're going to have a rehearsal for Maddie May. That'll be a play written by Jeannie Baroga. I don't know the company that's sponsoring it. I mean, who's doing the Zoom reading?
I think we're just, right now our sponsor is technically CATS, the Contemporary Asian Theater Scene.
Nice.
So, but it's a fundraiser for Katatagan. I hope I said that right. Mm-hmm. Which is a book that Jeannie is working on about the West Coast Filipino Americans theater artists.
Yeah. It's something that Mallory had talked about when she was on our podcast.
Right. She's been working on it. Yes.
Yeah. No. So it's fantastic, and the play is just wonderful, and we invite everyone to come see it.
There's so many people that we have that are involved in it. So
yeah.
Kimberly we couldn't get. But Mallory is involved. Reg is involved.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be incredible.
Yeah, and that'll be Wednesday, I believe, the 22nd. I don't have my
Yeah.
calendar in front of me. The
It'll be
22nd,
Wednesday
and
the 22nd. Yeah.
yeah.
We're going to talk about it at rehearsal, but I think we're going to aim for a 5:30 performance because we've got an East Coast actress, and I'd like to not keep her up till midnight trying to do our reading. So
Yeah. And two other plugs. I mentioned the play that I've written, Ang Espia, which is Philippine for The Spy. And this is a adaptation of Bertolt Brecht's Fear and Misery in the Third Reich. He wrote a play called The Informer. And this is a adaptation. It deals with a Philippine family dealing with immigration issues. So we think that the immigration issue and the zero tolerance policy of Trump and being an undocumented immigrant, it's not just a Latino issue. It deals with all sorts of immigrants who come into the United States. And already we talked about this. And I'm so thankful that Bindlestiff will be sponsoring that. And that will be on Saturday, the 25th of July.
Right. Well, and Radio Golf, which will be before that.
Exactly. And that's the other thing. Radio Golf will be a Zoom reading of the Austin Wilson play presented. Is it the company, the Charlottesville Theater Company? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. And so that will be at 5 p.m. PST. Is that right? 5 p.m. Yes.
Yeah.
5
Yeah.
p.m.
Our
PST.
time, 5 p.m. Their time, 8 o'clock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So see me on Radio Golf at 5 p.m. on Saturday, and then 3 hours later, you'll see my play Ang Espia, hopefully.
Yay, man.
Aureen, did you want to promote anything that Bindlestiff has going on?
Well, just the Ang Espia is what's coming up, and then we're doing another show on August 1st that will be a benefit for, or it's sort of like an awareness for healthcare.
All right. Well, yeah, send me the link to that, and we'll let folks know, because we'll have at least 3 Yay episodes before that comes on.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll definitely promote that. Aureen, I hope you had a good time. Did you have a good time?
I've got one other show that's coming up.
Yes.
The King Lear. The San Francisco Shakespeare Festival normally does their free Shakespeare in the Park, and now it's free Shakespeare at home, they're calling it. And that'll start next weekend, Saturdays and Sundays at 7 o'clock. No, Saturdays at 7 o'clock, Sundays and Labor Day, the Monday of Labor Day, at 4 p.m. They're going to be running all summer like they would normally do, but they'll be doing this live on YouTube. So it's going to be an interesting experiment.
Yeah. Now, for those who want to see all of these readings and all that sort of stuff, you can check out Ang Espia. I'll have a link to the Bindlestiff website, so you can click onto the link. For the others, you can let me know via either YouTube or via our Facebook chat. You can just send a comments, because a lot of these readings are limited, because especially the August Wilson piece. When you have published pieces, you have to have a limited audience, and I won't get into the details of that. But if you want to see it, let me know in the links, and we'll send you a Zoom link. Aureen, did you have a good time?
Yes, I did. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, and thank you for it's been a while, but it's wonderful to finally have you and to talk to you and to sing your praises and also Bindlestiff's praises. I think you're doing a magnificent job at Bindlestiff, and so you deserve praise for that.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Alan.
All right. Well, everyone, you're already watching the Yay. We finally have a YouTube channel. At first, I've been posting this on my personal YouTube channal. But now we have a dedicated Yay YouTube channel. So please subscribe.
Wow. Cool.
Link and subscribe to that for the videos. And for the audio, we always have the podcast, strictly the audio, on our any app that you listen to your podcasts. If you're a Android user, you can go on the SoundCloud.com website, or just click on, or just download the SoundCloud app, and you can find us. We're on Spotify, the Apple Podcast app, really any app that you listen to your podcasts. The Yay was created by theater people for theater people. If you have a show you want to advertise, or if you just want to advertise yourself, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm at Reg_Clay. And
I'm at Who's Your Hoosier.
Aureen, how can people contact you if they want to reach out to you?
Yes, Aureen at Bindlestiffstudio.org.
Okay. You don't do the Twitter or Instagram or anything like that?
Only Instagram and Facebook. For Instagram, it's at Aureen and an A, Arena.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll send a link to that. And as we always say, We got to find
a better sign off.
And we are out. Thanks for watching, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Norman, I will see you in a half hour.
Have a good
Yeah.
rehearsal.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much for coming out and joining us.
Yeah.